Here we go.
Welcome, world. Tasmin Trezise here, founder of Hinder. Here with Dan, the Millennial Man.
Take two.
Take two. We've been live for about 5 minutes or so realised we hadn't actually pressed the button. So now we're on.
Yeah. I guess workforce success, which we'll dive into a bit more, is about,
being successful.
Being successful, challenging adversity, and learning from things. So welcome. If you're just joining us, which I think is all of you, welcome to the Workforce Success webinar number 2. We'll be talking a little bit more about what it takes to be a workforce success champion and to go against the current and that prevailing sentiment that sometimes you just get stuck in and just go with the flow. And I think a lot of the times, Tasmin, stop me if you disagree, but I mean, you'd be wrong. Yeah. To be a workforce success champion doesn't always have to mean that you are, unpopular or going against the current, but it also means about setting up for being successful and for challenging the prevailing sentiment sometimes.
Yeah, not being afraid of that. So we ran our first workforce success, very first last year. Huge turnout, much bigger than we expected. Everyone got a lot to take from it. So we thought we'd put together this webinar just to dive into what you should be looking forward to for 2019, kind of what the structure is going to look like, whenabouts it is, like who the conference is going to be for, and kind of get a much more, bigger focus on what it actually is and what benefits can come out of it.
And I think also maybe for those playing at home, dive in a little bit more into workforce success, what a workforce success champion is that we keep going on about, and that I talk about with my friends, I talk about here at Hinder. We're constantly going on about it to our clients, our customers. We really want them to live, breathe, and embody workforce success. On that note, you can follow along also on socials. Drop in any questions because we'll have a Q&A session as well. So if you're following along, you can follow on Facebook at Workforce Success. On Instagram, follow us at Workforce Success, and then on Twitter at WS Champions. To follow along, drop us any questions. I know we've got a few viewers, which is pretty good. And if you have any questions throughout, please drop them in, and then we'll answer them in a bit of a Q&A. But I guess I want to start off by asking the definition. I know you've said it before, but in the past, but for those who are maybe joining us for the first time, Tasmin, what do you define as workforce success?
Yeah, so I think as we've gone on the journey of building out the software and the platform, we realize there's a lot more to empowering teams than just the software, and different philosophies can work. In much a way of managing teams, you can make frontline teams successful and not successful. And you see that the difference between organizations and different teams. We realize workforce management is dead, the term workforce management and what that kind of entails. And it was all about success. So it's more than just the day-to-day administration stuff. Like, you've got to automate that away. So, but then it's what you do with the spare time that you can automate away. So management's kind of like the looking after what's already there. Success is about that next step you can go forwards. So getting managers to train, lead, and spend time with frontline teams, and how you actually make that possible. And then when you're spending that time, what information are you giving to the teams? And
also, I guess it's not just managers; it's also empowering frontline employees to also be workforce success champions. What we would term that, someone who I guess is looking to become what do we call them? An ultimate master of their work. It's ultimate mastery of your work in service of others, right? So we want even someone on the front line to feel that way and feel empowered to make change, to I guess look for ways that they can improve the way they work. And feel empowered to also talk to their managers and make change starting at the front line, right? On the front line, die on the front line. That's sort of a big motto that we have.
Well, the war is fought and won, we found, on the front line and in the edge of the workforce. And businesses are finding it harder and harder to, I guess, because it's a younger workforce, to communicate with them and get them to be invested. So I think really what we're trying to do is make that 16, 17-year-old who's just started working in the retail store or working in the hospitality or working in a manufacturer in a hospital to say, I can build a career out of this, I love this, and then apply themselves 100%. Because that commitment that you get success out of.
I have a question for you, and maybe it might upset the apple cart, but does being a workforce success champion or believing in workforce success mean that you have to always challenge status quo and you always have to be, changing things around?
No, I think there's kind of like a yin and a yang. So the yin is it kind of comes with the same with the automation and then the application towards the frontline teams.
Yeah.
So if you got to work every single day and try to do something different, you're going to drive yourself crazy. You're not going to get any outcome.
Yeah.
So it's about, I guess, finding that thing that can scale and then passing the responsibility over the teams to dive into it.
To enact it, to implement it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And so there are times where you, whilst we talk about, making sure that we're updating, innovating, changing, iterating, there are times when sometimes you have to stay the course and, because at a certain point someone has put that in place or a group of people have put it in place to enact because it seems like the right way forward. I would say, taking from what you said, if you notice that there are any issues or if there's a way that things could be improved, speaking up about it and talking to the rest of your team and talking about it. So rather than always just challenging, maybe just bringing it up and being quite open and transparent in your communications. So that way at a certain point, the issue can be raised and worked on.
Yeah, I think this is what we want to talk about at the conference and really dive into as well is what just is it exactly that makes these teams tick and how do we make them successful? So we know pre-Tander we're running an organization with 100 hourly staff and we're losing 800K a year. Yeah. And all we changed was really things like the back of house processes and the frontline teams and how we made them successful. In a year we had $1 million turnaround and we finished the year with a 200K surplus. Yeah. And that was a huge change and it was all in the culture of the teams. And then starting Tander, we started at 0 and now we're up to 140 staff. Yeah. And we've done that much faster, but it's all been about finding within our clients and people we work with what makes them successful and then putting together this philosophy of, this is how frontline teams operate and work. And and most of it's just about sharing that information around and applying that, things do work and things don't work. And what are the things that really, really work? That's what we want to share with everyone.
Yeah, you mentioned an important thing and something I think that's more and more so, it's been around for a while, but more and more becoming quite prevalent is culture. You talked about culture, having to change that. And I would say connecting the dots, it's also a culture of communication is the most important. So, there's the things that you do, the vibe in an office workspace, and there's also the culture of communication, which is how do the people in a business communicate with each other. Would you say that's correct?
So I think communication is part of it. I think it's a subset though. So it's people know when they walk into a business if it's thriving. Yeah. Like if the productivity is people love their jobs, they're doing it well, and they're getting results and they're being successful. Yeah. And I think that's why workforce success is so important because it energizes a team towards that goal. Yeah. And then obviously if everyone's on that same goal, communication becomes much easier within the organization because everyone's a lot more open because they understand that they're on a shared goal and they're trying to achieve it. Yeah. So, part of it, what we do at Tander is automate all those back of house processes so people can focus on culture. Managers get out of the back office, spend time with the teams, building the culture.
And then for us internally, we use Workplace by Facebook, which is, I know, has really opened up those communication lines. But not just that, it does sort of allow us to celebrate those successes, identify issues, and with the stuff that we've set up, these automations and bots that we've set up using Workplace by Facebook, I think it's enabled us also to identify issues and have that direct line of communication with clients, customers and prospects because we can see instantly what people are saying. It alerts us. And that way it's very open and transparent for the whole business.
Yeah. And I think as we look, especially, it's huge. We kind of see people applying it really well. Yeah. And I think that's the benefit of the conference is we can get everyone together under the same roof and we can kind of start talking about this because it's not set in stone about what does make these teams successful. And there's controversy around.
And it's different about different in different industries. Different people work differently.
You'd be surprised how universal it can become as well. So whether you're a hospital or hospitality, there's really strong undercurrents between.
Yeah, I guess that's also ties back to sort of what Tan's based on is we are able to service anyone in most verticals or industries, but at the end of the day, it all ties back to a single proposition. Making your workforce successful, maximizing revenue while looking at your bottom line, and ensuring that your most controllable cost is looked after, right? Yeah. And that's across every vertical, and that's the core tenet, and then we've grown from there.
Yeah, and then I think that's what inspired the idea of the conference as well, which is we looked around and we saw there's HR conferences, payroll conferences, there's accounting conferences, there's every conference under the sun, but there was nothing for people on the front line. So there's nothing for people who are managing teams or actually like doing the bulk of the work, like in terms of working with customers. And there's and we thought, well, if we want to try and inspire people to make that a career and really care about it, well, then we should treat it as that. So we thought we'd host it. So that's kind of leading into kind of what we're planning for next year. The idea and the philosophy of the conference is you can send someone who is, you know, a rising star, or, you know, is looking at, they might be just new to the organization, but they've got a lot of talent, or they're just starting to manage teams, or they're really committed into like the goals of the organization, so you want them to get committed, and then send them along to the conference to be inspired about what it actually takes to run teams and be successful within teams, and almost as an incentive throughout the year of, you know,
if we get to go.
As in, like, you know, if I'm really good, I get to go, or it could, you know, they'll come back inspired to take that organization to the next step. And then obviously we have have those people as a core, and then everyone around who supports that team to be successful. I would
also, like, in my head, taking over, it very much sounds also like professional development seminar or conference for those who in the past haven't had professional development opportunities. And I think it's good because there is such a melting pot of people from different industries, in different levels of management in the workforce, being able to learn, those rising stars learn from those people who have been there, and those people who have been in a business for a long time, top team managers coming out of the boardroom, coming out of the back office, and seeing what's affecting people on the front line, and talking to other people to understand what's going on. I guess that's why we have a physical, you know, conference. For me, I definitely noticed at the last conference, so full disclosure, before I started Tandra, I was working at agency, and I about managing millennials and Gen Z in the workplace, and what challenges affected them. And I think some of those loudest conversations in the panels outside of that, my presentation, in the panels, the loudest topics there and other presentations were people discussing the way that these different, I guess, employees and people in the workforce communicate and have different requirements, seemingly, but at the end of the day, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, because essentially it's just now we have such a transparency in the workplace, so much readily available information about culture, about how to engage, how to make the workplace better, how to streamline processes, or what you should be doing to iterate, that it's no longer a silo of information. And it's simply, I guess, the very vocal, I would say, you know, not a vocal minority, a vocal majority is now millennials and Gen Z in the workplace who are promoting this and prompting this change. And we're starting to see that people of an older generation are taking note, and are essentially realizing that the status quo can be changed, and what they came through the system with doesn't have to be there anymore. And we very much took that away, I think, in talking to a lot of the older audience members and delegates at the conference. I took away was that essentially these are things that people have wanted for a long time. It's just that, you know, for a long time there was a prevailing sense of, no, this is how we've always done it. It has to be done this way, or work has to be completed this way. Conferences are only, back to the conference, conferences are only for people in management to take a day off or go golfing, or to go to a long lunch, go to a boardroom lunch. Whereas what we're trying to do with the Workforce Success Conference, particularly next year, is take it to a bit of an alternative venue, make it just one big day event where everyone can come together, ideally find some wisdom, find some learning, chat, share some knowledge, and it can be something that anyone, particularly people who who are striving to do better in their roles.
And it's spot on, because everything that sits behind that frontline employee. So if you're a retail store, you walk in to buy some clothes, and that person says, "Hey, how are you going today? Can I help you with anything?" Everything within the organization is set up, and it doesn't matter how big you get, to support that moment, to support that person is walking in, and to go through that process. So when it comes to things like workforce software, that person needs to understand the why of the organization, and anything that detracts from the why
Yeah.
is something that you need to eliminate. So it's things like not being paid properly, or not knowing the hours you're working, or not knowing when you're rostered on a shift, or not knowing, or it could be, HR practices, or it could be your operational, it could be you don't have the stock. There's so many things that sit behind that, but all sits behind it to support that frontline.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we see our focus and the philosophy playing out. And the conference is all about that. So we want everyone who supports that frontline employee to be there.
Yeah.
Because they need to be there. Because
and bring along the people that they think really could get some use out of it, who are on the front line, and like come as a team, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
That way you're sharing those learnings. It doesn't have to be relayed from one person to another. And obviously it's nice to have a big crowd, because that also facilitates better atmosphere, more knowledge sharing, and for us, maybe a bigger catering bill. But I think that's a good thing. That's a good problem to have, because we are going to take more learnings from it. And I guess, 2018 was really good. It was big. I think we had over 250 people come, which was really good. Next year, I know we're aiming, we really want to hit that 1K mark, because I think that's what it's worthy of, even more so. Recently we went to Xerofund, and that's a conference for accountants, 3,000 people, and the amount of knowledge and the amount of socializing and networking that goes on. It's amazing, and we really want to empower people to actually have that no matter where they are. They don't have to be an accountant. They can be frontline, they can be a manager, they can be in any industry and still come and take something away.
Yeah, exactly. And then so I just finished the MYB Roadshow as well, talking about workforce success in Melbourne and Queenstown.
Yeah.
And it's very much the same as there's a huge, there's a professionalism, and there's a network of support for people, say in the accounting industry.
Yeah.
Where's that for the frontline and people who manage them and the people who support them?
Pretty much non-existent.
Yeah. So that's kind
except for
the work. Yeah. So I think that's why we're really trying to double down on it, because we think it's worth having. We think it's something that they want. So one of the clients I met when I was in Melbourne purely said he was opening up more bar venues so he could give the team career progression.
Yeah, right.
So he was just going to have the one, but then he thought he had to have more so he could have career progression within the industry. Yeah. So
and then that also obviously serves him well, as and the business owner as well, because it works. It's a mutual benefit for the employer and the employee, right? They have the career progression. He's got, more loyal employees who are going to work longer, ideally, with the company. They're going to learn new skills that are going to help them later in life. So that, let's say, when they do leave, and ideally past that, average 2.5 year mark that most people leave, when they do leave, it's a good story to have. And people who come from that business, people look at it and go, oh, wow, that business is training people up very well, giving them great opportunities. I want to work there, or anyone that comes from that business, I want to hire.
And the life skills that his team is learning is huge. They're coming from, say, a lot of places where just from high school, they haven't really never worked in the workforce, and that's their first engagement. Yeah. So it's that's skilling them up for life. So it's a great social service as well. So that's kind of where we see this is, well, how do we get people to that why? How do we get people to the committed? And I think that's what we're going to try to talk about at the conference is, how do we hand off all the responsibility of running a business to your teams, so they can take hold of it, be accountable to it, and really run with it. We realize the responsibility is needed, but it needs to come with a why. Yeah. And the why is really also what we're trying to solve at the conference of, why do I want to be successful at work? I'm a 16-year-old teenager. I never had to really do anything in my life. I just lived with my parents. This is my first job. I just want money so I can go play Xbox. Yeah. How do you get that person to want to be so motivated and so bought into the idea of them being successful and their work being successful? Yeah. Because that's a dramatic change. And we've seen in every organization that we've worked in, that change happen. But it comes with a philosophy change. And it's not just about the processes. It's also about the people and kind of the platforms that sit behind that. That's
a really great segue, because I just had a few questions come through. So I wasn't being rude, just checking my phone, okay. Buzzing with some people.
I get on rants.
Yeah.
Question time.
Facebook. No, I think on that note, how do you balance that investment in training people or changing that philosophy? Someone's written here that balance that investment in people, I would add in philosophy, and that investment in resources. What if you have a limited budget and you're only maybe starting, you're a small company beginning to operate. How do you, balance that? You don't have many staff, so you maybe don't have the time.
Yeah, so I think it's all about leverage.
Yeah.
So it's leveraging what is around you to take that next step in how you move the needle.
Yeah.
So if you're running a small team, so 3, 4, 5 employees, and you know what your goal is, it's actually easy because you're so emotionally connected into the culture.
Yeah.
And you know your team. You know your team so well. Actually, as you get like the hard thing is scaling that as you grow. So if you get like 20, 30, up to you 20,000, 30,000s. How do you actually scale that small team? So the small team is kind of what I think you want to, like the ideals of it, which is everyone knows each other so well. They're emotionally invested in their own success and the success of the team. And when it comes to leverage, it's using things like technology or finding those things that really move the needle that like don't cost a lot, very small investment. And it's usually about, it's not about what it is, it's about what you make it as well. So I think that's a large part of it.
Another question from someone who will come up in our DMs. What are the top 3 areas of priorities that we've invested in to get Tandem to where it is?
Yeah, so I think that's why we talk about a lot about our philosophy. Yeah, because the product is it's ever evolving. Like as we bring out more things to engage teams whilst they're at work, and make sure that the experience of at work is like a really positive one. Yeah. So like when I was in Queenstown doing the New Zealand stuff. So we spoke a lot about the philosophy and how we can help accountants and bookkeepers empower the front line. Yeah. So they think they're in the back of house, but really it's about helping the whole business get back to the front line if you can sort out all that stuff. And it kind of got to the end and they were like, oh, but what does your product actually do? So we talk about the philosophy a lot, but because we realize that's where we've always started. Yeah. And it's always what's driven us to success. So I think when it comes to spending and investing our time, it's the ultimate mastery of work. So getting really, really good at what we do. So we want to be the best developers. We want to be the best coders. We want to be the best. We want to be the best account management people. We want to be the best at every single thing that we focus ourselves on. Yeah. But it's all about for the service of who our customers are and who we're actually building. Because we're not building Tanda for us. We're building Tanda for the people who actually who are in the industries.
And in a way, I would say it's also for ourselves as well, because we want to build out a career. We want to see it grow. We want to be able to continue to do our best, and actually to look back in 2 years and be like, oh, is that what we were doing 2 years ago? Yeah. Oh, how far we've come, or this is something I've learned. Even if you are a manager, if you've been in business for a while, you want to continually be saying, hey, I've done better this day than I did yesterday. What else can I improve upon? I guess in service of others, but.
Yeah, and that's why success is so important, and the concept of leverage is because we know when someone uses, say, the software, they become so they can get a 10x return on just like the return to the teams. Yeah. So doing more on the top line, bringing like more productivity, as well as getting rid of all the the administration stuff. So however successful we are, that's only a proxy for how we've 10x all of our customers. Yeah. And we've made them be able to do so much more, which is important for us. So become successessful because you're helping other people achieve their goals and find.
And that's pretty rewarding in itself, or a lot more rewarding than just I guess a selfish reason to.
Yeah, and that's why if we built Tanda for ourselves, and it wouldn't be very, you have to do it. You have to be very conscientious about it. Yeah. And that's kind of where the emotional investment comes in as well with teams. You have to be emotionally invested. You have to have conflict within teams. You have to be emotionally invested in their success. Yeah. Or else it's very hard to actually want to make it happen. So that we have a very high emotional investment in our customers and them being successful. So I think that's where we invest a lot of our time. Is trying to distill that into the product.
You talk about also becoming emotional, having that emotional investment. I find this quite hard because I, personally do get emotionally. No, I was going to say, personally get quite emotionally attached to a lot of things. Have you found that there are times when you do need to sometimes detach yourself emotionally. Maybe from like your end goal, that's fine. That vision, that aspiration, workforce success, we're very emotional about. But sometimes making a decision, sometimes you have to be like, if I want to achieve X, I have to let go of Y.
Yeah, and that's the difference between having that investment in someone else's success versus yours, I think, as well. Because if you have it in theirs, you don't kind of let that get in the way, because it's about whatever it is going to take for that to happen. Yeah. Not what it's going to take for you. It's interlocked. So if you're willing to change your plans, and that's why like we go through so many iterations of building a product. Yeah. And we're not committed to say one thing, because you can get really passionate about your work, but unless it's actually helping that other person, then it's not. It's like offering someone the same. If they work into that retail store, offering that one just because you really like one of the dresses, trying to offer that dress to that person who's come in 10 times. It's not going to be like you're not helping that person. Yeah, true. Could be a bad analogy.
It's all right. Sounded right to me. I've just got one that's a bit, I guess, left of field, but more so a question about processes and what enables people to be successful. In the age of information overload and digital technology, what are the best tools to help our staff become more productive without the risk of them abusing the privilege? So I think that sort of ties back to, I'm going to ask the question, I wouldn't answer for one of these, but what is it, let's say, a technology that you think is handy, or are there any that you know of for productivity?
Yeah, I think
Candor for one.
Yeah, so I was going to chat about some other stuff, but I think the shift swapping release is a really good example of that. So it was something we've released last week around the ability for employees to swap shifts with each other. Yeah. So after the roster and the schedule has been put out. Yeah. So, and that was a large part about aligning someone's personal goals with the business goals and making sure that their schedule, there's that flexibility. Yeah. But then there's levering of levels of how, when it comes to letting that happen, should we allow that to happen or not? So how do you balance the flexibility with the responsibility and like the efficiency of the organization? Yeah. And we talked about that for so long. As we were building the product, we got so deep into the problem. And
you really have to get into also how different organizations work, because there are some people out there that perhaps don't want to, the manager doesn't need to be involved in the process. They're quite open and happy. We're talking about abusing the privilege. We built in the way we built this feature is obviously made to ensure that people aren't just flaking on shifts. It's letting them know how much they're going to lose if they don't take a shift, to de-incentivize, I guess, someone dropping a shift. But then there are those companies out there that, are going to be like, oh, well, if someone wants to swap, they want to swap. Well, there are others who want to know who's coming. They don't want to play a game of guess who.
Yeah, and I think that's where management is dead and workforce success comes in. Because workforce management is, employees will clock in and clock out and will approve their times, and then that's it. Yeah. Management is how you go that management success is how you go that one step above and say, okay, well, that's good. Now, how do we get that labor data that we're collecting live and give it to the people on the front line who are making the decisions and allow them to make real-time decisions based on that data? Yeah. When it goes from, and so that's with a live wage tracker, where it goes from, say, like a shift swapping, it's not how do we just manage the pool of resources and labor that we have to let them know what shifts they're working. Success is that one step further, which is, okay, well, how do we put out what we want, but then have the flexibility for the teams to be able to kind of do what they need to do to match and align their goals with the business goals. Yeah. Where it fails and where it succeeds is when the abuse and privilege. Yeah. So when you give privilege to your team, that they don't abuse it. Yeah. Because if you give privilege to your team, like a shift swapping, everyone, like no one cares, and they swap shifts and people don't show up, and it's a public holiday, it's an event on, everyone wants to go to the festival or whatever, so everyone puts in unavailability and leave. Then that's more of a symptom of a problem, which is your teams still don't have responsibility or invested in the business success. Yeah. So there's more work that needs to be done on the culture. Yeah. So it's more of a symptom, which it's good because you find it. Yeah. And like symptoms, you can then work out what the problem is.
Yeah. No, I think that's rational. I'm getting people calling through. No. It's they're
calling.
No.
This is live. Yeah.
Yeah, this is live. People are calling through.
Cool.
No, I
Just
think
put a number up.
Yeah, I think that actually ties back to an anecdote I had a few years ago, and it's still true today. But there's so many companies that like have banned the use of, like, let's say, certain sites like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube at work through the work computers. Now, from a basic perspective, if you don't need it for work, then I can understand that. However, we all have mobile phones. We live in a modern age. I find that social technology, has definitely helped communication within the business, any business I've been in. And also because we have these phones, if you've been on, people are going to be able to jump on anyway, and they're going to. The best thing I ever heard was from one of the heads of digital at ANZ Bank, and it was that putting that in place is this idea of workforce management. It is like suddenly instilling a sense that you do not trust your employees as human beings to be able to do their job productively, and also to care enough to not waste time or abuse a privilege. Instantly, that puts up a barrier. Secondly, most workplaces already have policies in place, or should have policies in place, that if the work isn't done, the outcome isn't there, then there are repercussions, there's disciplinary actions that need to be taken. So by putting this double wall up, it's sort of like saying, no, I'll tell you what to do. I think when we go back to the idea of workforce success, workforce management, it's instilling a sense that, hey, you have the freedom to get on Facebook. You have the freedom to use these technologies that you need to communicate, to live your life, because we are living more and more our lives at work. This idea of work-life balance, I think, is slowly slipping away because work has become so ingrained in what we do. And if we are to be successful at work, and I believe if we have joy in what we do, then it starts to meld. Like, we might work maybe different hours, but we work longer. We're still attached to the job, even when we're at home. If you allow people and give them the privilege to use how they need, you're really instilling a sense of, hey, I trust you. I trust that you're going to not abuse this privilege. And if there is a need to discipline them, that's already there. I think it's rather than here's what you can't do, what you can do, and see where it goes from there, and ensure that, I guess, when you're in an organization, you've got a bit of a hive mind, right? So seeing what the others do in that culture, again, becomes a big part of it. What are others doing? How are others treating it? Are they always on their, like, socials? Are they always doing something? Is there other ways I could be using this? Should I be doing this time? Or should I maybe refrain from doing something or using a certain technology?
No, I think it's such a good point, and it's so huge. There's a joy and privilege with having work as part of your identity, and caring about the outcome. And I think the reason we talk so much about frontline workforces is because that's kind of where it starts. Like, someone has just joined the frontline. It's their first, for a lot of these younger workforces, it's the first interaction. And as it gets into other industries like hospitals and medical and all that kind of stuff, they're seasoned professionals, but they're still on the coalface, and they're still doing the things that kind of that define the success of that organization, and everyone else there to support them. So when it comes to things like that trust, it's because, I mean, if you don't trust someone, they don't trust you back. That's the first result of it.
Why don't you trust me? I'm a good person. You should trust me.
But there's also people who abuse it. Back to the privilege. They abuse that trust. One person can abuse the trust of the whole system, and then that takes it away from everyone else. So what we're really trying to do is build systems and processes that have that trust and responsibility and accountability built in, and it's not even a question. Like, this huge national debate that's happening at the moment to do with wage theft and time theft is a perfect example of that. So you got wage theft, which is employers stealing from the employees based on things like, all the stuff involved in that. And there's time theft, which is employees stealing from the employer.
Saying they work longer or slacking around and taking time to clock out so that they get extra 10 minutes.
And the more you push these two things apart, like wage theft is a massive thing, time theft is a massive thing, the more you make the employers and the employees enemies of each other. And how do you ever achieve something, and how do you ever work towards an outcome as a business if that's true? So don't let that happen. Like, don't let those two things happen. So you can put in systems which kind of just, like, the trust is inbuilt. So you can't have that one or two people in, say, on the front line who abuse the system and then take away the privilege of others. Because what they're doing is they're taking away the ability for responsibility to flow from the boardroom to the front line.
Yeah.
And the people who care about their work want that. They want to take that responsibility. So that's what we try to do. Yeah, build the trust. So things like, so if you clock in and out and you apply the award and it goes straight into payroll, like you're not going to be paid wrong.
Yeah.
So like that's it looks like administrative and the process stuff, but it's actually about the culture and the team and like the long-term sustainability of the entire organization.
No, that's a really good point. I think also, to be honest, a pretty good point to end on. Trust, culture, all tied back to what we've been going on about for the past 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I guess what I'd probably want people to take away as well is that we are going to continue this conversation, not only in a series of webinars all the way throughout the year until July next year is when we'll be hosting the next Workforce Success Conference, end of July. So keep your eyes peeled for more information about tickets. They'll be releasing shortly. We'll have definitely early bird tickets coming out in the next month or so.
Yep.
And we've got some pretty big names coming. We're excited to announce, and we will be releasing, I guess, I know we had planned one date, but I'd like to, I don't know, I think end of October is probably when people should be really getting hyped up. That's when we'll release the initial lineup. And also make sure that you're keeping up to date on workforcesuccess.com. You might have seen the little logo slide. There's a lot changing with Workforce Success, and there'll be a lot of third-party publishers, authors coming on board to produce content and produce thought pieces outside of our own, because I know sometimes people can get sick of hearing from us. But we've got some really great people. Many of the speakers that were speaking at 2018 conference, those will be at the 2019 conference. So you'll see little snippets come out. So again, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So that's Workforce Success, and on Twitter it's WS Champions. But yeah, there's so much coming over the coming months, particularly before the end of the year. So keep your eyes peeled, and hopefully you can join us for the next webinar as well. Never know, we might even get some speakers in here in the next couple of months as well. Maybe pre-conference, have a little bit of a chat. So,
yeah, I think that's a good plan.
Yeah.
I think for us for the conference, when we're looking at it, we know frontline workforces and the people who support them have the largest contingent of people who work in the world. So there's no reason why we can't build this to be the largest workforce-related conference in the world.
Yeah.
And that's kind of our goal that we want to try to achieve. So a large part of that is just getting feedback from people of like what you guys are going to see at the conference, and what you enjoyed last year, what you think could change, how we can improve, and kind of what you'd actually like to see next year as well. So we've got some plans. We're really excited. I think it's going to be about 10 times as big, which is what we're aiming for.
World's largest workforce success conference.
Yeah, and then that's kind of like the goal we'll keep working towards, because the more we can kind of build that, the more benefit that comes out for everyone as well. Success breeds success. Action creates action. So the more we have that, the more it's going to be beneficial to the industry, and our clients as a whole.
Brilliant. All right. Well,
look forward to it.
I've been Dan Etiel, Tasmin Trezise. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to do maybe a little bit of an ungraceful end to the conversation, how we started, but. Thank you for joining us. Thank you so much, and hope to see you at the conference.
Ciao.
Goodbye.